All right, let's dive right into this incredibly dense, multidisciplinary explainer covering Marie-Soleil Seichert-Landry's proposed framework for a completely organic civilization by 2030. We are looking at a seriously ambitious, sweeping roadmap here. It's designed to transition humanity away from our extractive, petrochemical age and toward a life-centric economy. And we're not just talking about farming either. This is a structural pivot covering everything from materials science and thermodynamics to sweeping constitutional law.
So here's our roadmap for today's architectural tour of the future. We'll be hitting the 2026 tipping point, the Universal Declaration, cybernetics of the soil, the hempoxy's material revolution, enforcing the new economy, and finally some massive civilizational megaprojects.
Okay, starting off with Section 1, the 2026 tipping point and the systemic debt wall of industrial agriculture.
To really understand this, we have to ground our explainer in immediate reality. And that starts with the geopolitical and agricultural debt crisis that is peaking right now, in 2026. The source text actually identifies this very moment as the catalyst for the entire transition. It argues that our industrial farming sector has literally hit a systemic debt wall due to compounding ecological and financial costs. I mean, $239,000. That staggering number represents the average debt of small family farms under our current chemically intensive corporate monoculture model. Between high input costs, extreme weather, and corporate consolidation, producers are facing extreme financial instability. It's pushing them to the absolute brink, which, ultimately threatens the stability and the cost of the very food on your table.
This core crisis really boils down to a massive disconnect. On one hand, you have an AI-automated financial sector chasing infinite growth. Basically, 98% of financial institutions are using artificial intelligence to allocate capital just for short-term returns. But on the other hand, we have the uncompromising, very real physical limits of our ecology. Strict ecological limits and finite carrying capacities. This intense friction between abstract financial automation and tangible ecological reality is exactly what elevates the need for a totally new systemic blueprint.
Moving on to Section 2, the Universal Declaration, establishing juridical personhood for nature.
So, to counter the extraction model we just talked about, the source document introduces a radical legal shift. It's called the Universal Declaration of Organic Rights, or UDOR. This is designed to completely dismantle the legal mechanisms that permit environmental degradation by reframing the whole concept of sovereignty. It basically functions as a legal constitution. Imagine extending the exact same legal rights that corporations hold today to entire ecosystems, rivers, forests, and even fungi. It establishes what's called organism democracy. This allows for direct legal representation of non-human entities to actually prosecute ecocide. It also guarantees individuals the freedom from synthetic toxins, and it mandates localized regenerative farming to ensure total decentralized food security. It is an absolute paradigm shift in constitutional law.
And according to the framework's Gates versus Organic Law document, there is a fierce geopolitical struggle happening right now. It's a clash between centralized patent holders and this decentralized regenerative movement. The source documents highlight a massive tension. You've got those who rely on centralized corporate agriculture, think patents, synthetic fertilizers, and GMOs, going up against the advocates for full-cost ecological accounting and biological sovereignty, which is mandated by organic law.
Which brings us to Section 3, Cybernetics of the Soil, the metaphysical framework of farmland.
Moving from the courtroom down into the physical earth, this blueprint reimagines soil. It's not just dead dirt, it's seen as a multidimensional, cybernetic medium. Within this system, we meet a role called the inundator. Think of them not just as a farmer, but as a sort of biological conductor. They are an operator who acts as a natural catalyst. By metabolically aligning with the land, they prevent biological waste and perfectly manage the energetic flow of the environment.
The growth of life in this framework is governed by 5 soul controls, which act as this incredible conceptual bridge between metabolic biology and cybernetic flow dynamics. Specific functions are strictly delegated here. Bhakav Han, Ishwari handles the regulation of vital raw material supply. Mahan Luxmi executes the actual biological construction. Saha Desi is in charge of adaptive systematic calibration, doing that without synthetic inputs. Sol Kali manages internal cellular electrical potentials. And finally, Sol Tara gives the organism its active, spirited autonomy. It is such a fascinating way to map out natural phenomena.
Now, to protect these metabolic ecosystems, the blueprint relies heavily on encrypted IoT networks. The processing uses G-force dynamics to accelerate molecular separation, and this is crucial. To protect the enzymatic integrity of the organic yield from photooxidation and to prevent cyber warfare, these environments operate under negative lux lighting. That means they are working in conditions of absolute, heavily encrypted, pitch-black darkness.
Let's pivot to Section 4. The Hempoxy's Material Revolution, synthesizing high-performance biocomposites. To actually replace petrochemicals, we need advanced materials that outperform them at the microscopic level. And this brings us to the industrial and chemical heart of the organic revolution. The flagship material of this era is a fully bio-based Vidromer nanocomposite derived from regenerative hemp seed oil. This solves the permanent pollution problem of old thermoset plastics. You see, traditional epoxies form permanent networks that can never be recycled, creating a massive environmental debt. But these hempoxies utilize dynamic covalent bonds. What that means is, when heated to a specific temperature, the bonds rapidly exchange and unlock. This allows the material to be repeatedly remolded, repaired, and infinitely recycled without losing any of its mechanical performance.
When you look at the raw performance numbers, it's honestly amazing. This organic material holds its own against aerospace-grade petroleum composites, but it boasts 100% recyclability. Hempoxy's version 17 achieves 212.4 megapascals in tensile strength and 265 megapascals in flexural strength. So while a conventional aerospace epoxy ends up sitting in a landfill, this hemp-based Vitamer is fully recyclable via transesterification. It actually acts as a net negative carbon footprint, or what the blueprint cleverly calls structural bullion.
And pushing the chemistry even further, we have the Landry cycle. This utilizes lasers to synthesize atmospheric carbon into ultra-strong, uniform bulk diamond composites at low pressures. Usually, creating these materials requires extreme geological pressure, right? But this process uses a 450 nanometer femtosecond laser to induce resonant 2-photon absorption. Basically, they are using highly precise light to literally 3D print ultra-strong materials out of thin air, all while safely storing atmospheric carbon.
Up next is Section 5, Enforcing the New Economy, Global Governance and Digital Tracking. To govern all these new materials and laws, the framework outlines a very strict top-down institutional architecture to enforce the 100% organic mandate. Moving away from petrochemicals on a global scale requires serious coordination. This institutional hierarchy relies heavily on open-source intelligence, or what they call legal espionage, to constantly monitor global supply chains. At the very top, you have the Organic Council of Earth handling science and diplomacy. Below that is the Global Organic Tribunal, which enforces the UDAR bans. And finally, you have the Organic Security Force acting as the OSINT and enforcement unit. They comb through public records and shipping manifests to ensure total corporate compliance.
But this enforcement isn't just physical, it's digital, too. Imagine Googling a product and knowing instantly, without a doubt, if it's been greenwashed. To combat deceptive marketing, a specific schema.org JSON code has been proposed to literally bake organic verification right into global internet search engine results. By defining an organic purity level of 100% bio-based directly in the code, search engines can verify if a product is truly regenerative. It prevents fraudulent marketing and directly rewards verified producers.
All right, bringing us to our final section, number 6, Civilizational Megaprojects, the New Pyramids, and Mission Sahara.
Let's zoom all the way back out to the macro level, where these new laws, cybernetic soil management, and advanced hemp materials all combined. The physical implementation of this new civilization is a global network of autonomous, vertical farming pyramid structures intended to sustainably house massive populations. The New Pyramids Project aims to build 100,000 of these sustainable, closed-loop pyramid superstructures, and get this, they're designed to sustain up to 100 billion lives. They integrate their own localized energy, secure computational nodes, and vertical farming to become entirely self-sufficient.
The functional prototype for these structures is called Area 52, and it's located in New Brunswick, Canada. This site features 100 solar-powered teepees equipped with vertical aeroponic domes, plus secure subterranean bunkers housing decentralized databases. This exact prototype is intended to serve as the physical model for Mission Sahara, which is a massive project designed to reclaim arid, global land through large-scale agroforestry and solar-powered water desalination.
So looking at this incredibly dense blueprint, from the molecular bones all the way up to the architectural megaprojects, it leaves us with one massive, lingering question.
Is our civilization really ready to completely transition from a system of toxic extraction to one of absolute biological regeneration? The Organic Revolution framework demands nothing short of a total civilizational rewrite by 2030. It challenges us to decide whether we will continue extracting from our finite world or if we will finally learn how to grow our future.